Welcome to the Woke Wild Women's Podcast. Today, Bethany, my co-host, and I, Roxanne Sailors, have my lifelong cousin, Leah Irby, with us from Sweden. Leah is a fertility coach and a mom of a little 3-year-old beautiful boy. And we invited Leah on to talk with us about fertility, what it means as a woman, and her work in the field of fertility. So with that, Leah, tell us your story about, tell us a little bit about your story about coming into motherhood, coming to where you are now, and some of the challenges and situations that you faced.
Okay.
There.
Yeah. So, wow. So I was married before and living in the US, and it was maybe 3-ish years we were trying to conceive, and or maybe 2.5, 3, somewhere in there, we kind of said, okay, things aren't going well. His sister had worked with a fertility clinic, and I said, okay, well, let's go get some tests. Let's check things. And we started working with them, but I remember having this feeling, this gut instinct, the first time we walked into the fertility clinic, that was a powerful no. Like, I can look back on it now and say, this was not a place I was supposed to be. But I kind of overrode that because I thought that his sister recommended the place. Everybody else said, oh, this is the best route. This is what you have to do. And, there's that pressure. I'm a woman. I want to have a baby. It's not happening. I'm in my mid-30s now. How's this going to come about? And so anyway, but I remember having this very clear, like, it was a sunny day, beautiful office. And I walk in and it was like, get me out of here. So
it's like your body's visceral response to.
Yeah, it was. And it's one of the things I really talk a lot about with clients is listening to that instinct.
Yeah.
So that, if I could go back to my former self and say anything, I would say, go somewhere else. Like, it might have still been a good idea to go to the fertility clinic at that point, but that particular one was not healthy. And it turned out that first appointment they did, there's one test they do where they check to see if your tubes are open. They squeeze this dye through your tubes, which if everything's clear, it's not super painful. You take a little painkiller, you're okay. But mine were a little bit blocked, and I was screaming. I mean, still to this day, I've gone through childbirth, but it's one of the most painful experiences I ever went through. Ouch. And the doctor was just like, and like, I found out later, if you do it slowly, it doesn't hurt so bad.
Well, that would have been helpful.
Yeah. And I just wasn't prepared at all. He said, well, it'll be slightly uncomfortable. So I said, okay, I don't want the painkillers. Like, if it's just a little bit, I don't want to be kind of out of it from the painkillers. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I started screaming. The nurse was like, where's the ibuprofen?
Oh, man.
So that was like my first experience with them, which wasn't good. Mm-hmm. And then we went through, and my husband had tests, and he turned out to have male factor infertility issue. It was basically low sperm count and ejaculation issues. And what's funny is around that time, like, all these people were putting pressure on me. It was all about, as a woman, it was all about, everyone asked me, why don't you have a child yet?
There's something wrong with you.
There's something wrong with you. And I'd be like, well, actually, it was actually both of us, but we didn't learn that from the fertility clinic. But it's interesting how men are kind of counted out of it. It's, if there are sperm challenges, the men don't talk about it. They don't talk to each other. And women are just naturally more, you watch other people's kids, you think about babysitting. For me, it was very important being an aunt for years before I was a mom. So like, that filled a little bit of that role of feeling like this motherhood. Plus I was a teacher. I was a music teacher for 20 years. So that definitely, I felt like I had many, in fact, I have one former student that I still kind of call my son, because I just kind of had to took him on after he graduated. We've stayed in touch.
Nice.
And kind of a mentoring role now, but yeah, it's I would say if you haven't gone through it, it's 1 in 8 couples experience infertility, and 1 in 4 will experience miscarriage. So an even higher rate will not have had any challenges getting pregnant, but have a loss as well. So it is, and I think people are talking about it more now, but it's still this kind of uncomfortable party conversation where, like, how is everything going for you? I'm going to the fertility clinic. Oh, are you going to have 5 babies now? Or are you going to, there's all these misconceptions about IVF, and we never even did IVF. We just did IUIs, which is basically they take the sperm and wash it and stick a catheter in you and put the sperm closer. So it kind of, especially with low sperm count, it's supposed to help with the pregnancy rates. So, we tried 4 times, and actually one of the times I did get pregnant and I had a miscarriage. And it turned out to be ectopic, which means that the pregnancy implanted somewhere other than the uterus.
Huh.
And that lovely fertility clinic, when I went back in, where I was sitting in the waiting room miscarrying already. I mean, I was in pain and bleeding and stuff. And I'm just sitting there waiting. And finally someone looks at me and is like, "You don't look good. Why don't you come back here and just lay down until the doctor can come see you?" And I didn't want to take any painkillers till I knew what was going on, because I thought, well, might be okay, might not. But once they did the ultrasound and they're like, "We can't find anything," then I'm like, "Give me the painkillers."
Yeah, totally.
Yeah. So it was quite a lot of just up and downs, and it ended up being probably a total of 4.5 years or so that we were trying, plus the IUIs, and then at that point, the fertility clinic, after like 4 tries and a miscarriage and all this, they said, "Okay, you got to move to IVF." It's like their standard, even though I felt that something was going wrong the whole time. Like from the very first month we were trying to conceive, my instinct, my intuition said something's up with me. And every time I asked the doctor, I went to a naturopath, I went to the acupuncturist, I went to, oh my Lord, so many different practitioners and the regular doctors in the fertility clinic and all this. And I'm like, something's going on. And when I started to kind of trace it back, I thought it was something like an autoimmune problem. And I finally found this book by an acupuncturist, The Infertility Cure by Randine Lewis. And she has a chapter on recurrent miscarriage, which I skipped the chapter because when I first got the book, I hadn't even had a miscarriage. So I was like, I don't need to read this chapter. It doesn't apply to me. I skipped over it.
Yeah.
And then later I was going through the book again and I'm like, wait a second. And it was recurrent miscarriage and implantation reaction. And I realized what I was having was an implantation reaction. And it's common if you have some kind of autoimmune problems. Basically, your body is on this fight or flight. We have systemic inflammation. Your body's saying, "This is not good, shut down."
Yeah. So once you get rid of
all
anything,
the bad stuff out.
Yeah. It's like your protective mechanism for your body, but sometimes it can just be on hyperdrive because you've got some kind of, irritant or whatever.
So would you say that the autoimmune disease or that is like one of the main causes of infertility and miscarriage, or just one of them?
Yeah, I don't know if I would say it's probably more common in today's society because of all the toxins and the different things that we have going on. I think it's more common now.
Yeah.
I know sperm counts over time have gotten quite a bit lower, from like say 1920s till now. They can show that there's, in fact, what they consider normal at the fertility clinic now is quite a bit lower than what they used to. They've even just lowered it because this is, some people are getting pregnant with these, right? So we won't worry about it.
So just because of like our environment and the way we live our lives now as opposed to years ago.
Yeah, like for me, what it turned out, so what I was gonna say, this implantation reaction, I was having like night sweats, anxiety, panic attacks, which I never had them any other time. But it was suddenly, I'd feel pregnant for 2 weeks, and suddenly right around my period would come. So instead of implanting, my body basically attacked this embryo.
Yeah.
And then it just, but it was this feeling like you're coming down with the flu, like, and just suddenly go from just fine to like feeling super depressed, like almost like you just turned a light switch. I'm like, what the heck? It wasn't like, oh, I felt sad, this thing happened, and then I started crying. It would just like fast. And what was confusing for me was when I kept asking these practitioners, is it possible the sperm and egg could meet up and then it never implants? That's what I was thinking was happening, but they were all just, oh, you're making up your pregnancy symptoms. You don't really know what's going on. And,
God,
and that can't be true. And it was just all this, yeah.
Blasted.
You know, even well-meaning family members, oh, you just really want to be pregnant. I'm like, you know what? No, I yes, I want a baby, but I don't want to be pregnant for 2 weeks out of every month. I'm sorry.
You think that's fun? Like, yeah, I have a best friend who went through a lot of miscarriages, and like I remember her doctor, they diagnosed her with lupus, which is an autoimmune. But then told her that it was, then later found out that that was actually a misdiagnosis. But she still, I mean, I don't know, just, you know, all of that stuff. She struggled with a lot of the same things. And it's very painful. It also brings up a lot of deep emotional stuff, you know, and that's what one thing I was going to say was, when you like bring it up to people, you know, in regular conversation, a lot of people can't handle that. They're not ready to like hold space for the realness of what it brings up for you guys. Therefore it doesn't get talked about. And so that's an excellent point, is like, why would I want to put my body through this and be in so much pain and emotional distress just because I want to have a baby? Don't you think I would have given up? Like, if I don't know, it just, just
the idea that I do understand that you can have psychosomatic, or you can imagine something enough that but something where it's not a positive reason. I mean, where it's so nausea and increased sense of smell is not something I'm really thinking I'm gonna just create out of thin air, you know?
Oh yeah. Exactly.
But I was teaching orchestra, and I remember having times on these 2-week times where I was feeling pregnant. And one time a kid came in with, you know, like cologne kind of thing on. And he was way in the back of the room, and he walked in the room and sat down. I was like, oh, he's wearing cologne. Like I just totally overreacted. I'm like, you know, waving myself, and the other kids like, what? We can't smell anything.
That's the worst.
Kid's like, I think it was me. Sorry.
Poor guy.
But you know, that kind of thing where no one else smells it or senses things, and I would just have this nausea, and then it was the exact same symptoms when I did have a confirmed pregnancy. But my own brother, when I called him to say that I was pregnant, finally, you know, we'd worked with the fertility clinic, we finally got pregnant the first time, and he said, so is it real this time? I was like, well, what do you mean? You know,
it wasn't. Yeah, you're saying that it wasn't real every other time.
So and that one I did end up miscarrying too. It was 6 weeks when we found out it was ectopic. But I just, okay, that's really supportive of you.
Right. Yeah. People don't know how to be supportive. That's why I think it's important to hear, you know, someone's journey like this. And hopefully a lot of people listen and hear it, so that we can have some understanding and empathy and compassion for what you have experienced, you know, and how to support people who are going through it, like you said.
Yeah. I think also the other thing I experienced was feeling alone, because everyone was looking at me for the child, looking at me for the problem, looking at me for, it must be your fault, or inadvertently. There was just all these little, like, someone elbowing me at church. When are we going to have another baby around here?
Oh, God.
And I remember this one, it was Mother's Day, and we had a woman in the congregation who got accidentally pregnant. was younger, and she turned, of all weird things, she ended up taking music lessons from me before I knew that she was pregnant. So I ended up with this pregnant adult student. I mean, she was an adult, but not married and not in the best situation and not really wanting the pregnancy. But on that Mother's Day, you know, everyone was celebrating, this is your first Mother's Day. And I remember just not even wanting to go to church, but I went because I used to take my grandparents to church. And I figure, okay, my grandma is also a mother figure, so you want to celebrate with them. But oh man, I remember I couldn't even look the one who had the baby or her mother who was helping her out. I couldn't look either one in the eyes. And I literally just pushed past them and ran to the bathroom and started crying. Aww. And someone else who'd known my whole journey, she saw me with tears in my eyes and she just gave me a big hug and she's like, it's like gonna be okay, you know?
Yeah.
But I remember even one time on Mother's Day calling my mom and I couldn't talk because I was just crying. I was like, I want to wish you a happy Mother's Day, but I want to be a mother and I'm not. And
right.
And actually that's another thing that since I've been working as a fertility coach, I kind of realized the moment that you want a child, you really have become a parent then. And that you put it out into the universe, this energy for this child. And if you are pregnant even for 2 weeks or whatever, you've still welcomed this soul in there, even if they don't stay, or maybe your body's saying like, I'm not ready. But it's something I talk about a lot. It's really resonated on social media too, is just that idea that, you know, you've expended your love energy, you're connecting with another person, or as a single mom by choice situation, and whether you have a loss or not, that's your energy, you are a parent. And so I think it's important for women to realize that we can have an identity outside of motherhood, and that it's okay to take longer to have a child. I also heard someone else talking about it as a delay rather than infertility, and even kind of shifting your perception, that we tend to think of we're broken, something's wrong, we can't do this fundamental thing that we're supposed to do as women.
Right.
We're supposed to be able, and I know women who've chosen not to have kids, and that's a beautiful choice too. I think it's very empowering. But if you're wanting children and it's not coming, it's just this, you feel like you're some people describe it as being left out of the club. Like you want to be a part of this group with everybody else and you're not there. And and then during the pregnancy with my son, actually, the question I struggled the most with was people would ask me, is this your first child? And on multiple levels, I was like, well, I have my nieces. They're like my first kids, really. And I had students, and I had, I don't feel like this young mother who doesn't have any experience. I feel like I'm an experienced parent, and I have had a pregnancy and a miscarriage, so it was weird because without sitting down and telling them my whole story, I'd sometimes just say, well, it's,
Right. I think that's a wonderful and beautiful point to say, that you don't have to actually have a physical child to be a mother or to like carry that mother energy. I also think that there's what I hear, and especially like I'm relating to my best friend who I heard a lot of her stories and how she felt like similar to when you saw a new mother with a baby. Like if someone she knew got pregnant, she would talk to me and she'd be like, I feel really bad because I just feel resentful and I'm like jealous. And I, you start to resent yourself or just like other women who can get pregnant easily, or you think that your body's not doing its job. So therefore you're like speaking negatively to yourself. And that's like creating the issue still. Like it's still not allowing you to be open to becoming a mother because you have all these negative views. And you talked about changing your perspective. And so I was just curious, like, does that play a lot into, like, say you're coaching clients, like the shifting the perspective, does that play a lot into like getting them to a space where they are open and can actually conceive?
Yeah, I would say like the mind-body connection is part of it. And the other part I would look at a lot is toxicity.
Okay.
toxicity, or just sometimes there can be physical obstructions. Like that's why I think some kind of testing with the fertility clinic is a really good thing.
Yeah.
I think my perception before I went to a fertility clinic was you only go there for IVF. I didn't realize kind of all the other, that it can be a good idea just to check. There's people who have like multiple miscarriages and then find out that they had a split in the middle of their uterus. They have like, it's like a wall in the middle of the uterus, and without like surgery or something, they're just going to always have trouble getting pregnant. Or if you had, say, endometriosis, or I had fibroids and got pregnant with them, but if they're too big, they can be in the uterus and make it. So there's some like literal physical things,
right.
You know, if your boobs are gone or something weird,
Yeah, definitely. Our bodies can do weird things.
yeah. But I do think the other piece, so if you take care of all that and you say, everything's perfectly fine and healthy and you're still not getting pregnant, then
gotcha.
I'd say this mind-body connection, I feel like I experienced a shift with both for myself. And so I see that in the fertility coaching, in the basically everyone says, well, don't stress. Like the most common thing is, just don't worry about it. Just relax.
And then it makes you stress even more.
Yeah, exactly. So the hard part is how to do that.
Yeah, especially when you've got, all these stimuli around you, the media, your doctors basically telling you there is something wrong that you have to fix somehow. It's like, and where do you find the support to be able to be in that space where you can be like, everything's fine, everything's good, and you can calm yourself enough to think to the possibility of allowing, the process to happen. So,
yeah, definitely. So for me, as far as the physical part, I realized that I had dental work that was a problem for me. So nobody talked about this at the fertility clinic. The regular naturopath didn't look at it. But when I went to one biologic dentist, which is like it's kind of like the naturopath of dentistry. So they do a more holistic approach. And I was recommended a root canal, and I went to him because there was part of me again that was like, I don't know if this is a good idea, but it's so hard sometimes to know who to listen to, or you Google and you're like, okay, well, it says yes and no, and who do I listen to? So I went to this one guy, and he said, oh yeah, the root canal will be fine. It turned out not to be, but he did at least put me on to the general concept of, I had a bunch of metal in my mouth. It wasn't mercury fillings. It was, I had this genetically missing teeth from my parents. So I was missing like 4 teeth just from my adult set. So I got these bridges put in when I was like 19 or 20. And now I was 35, 36. And turns out the back, it was this little like silver looking plate that replaced, so you got the tooth in the middle and then it clipped onto the side teeth. But that metal in it was a mixture. So they never told me what it was. When they put it in, they just said, oh, it's this silver colored thing.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Well, I still, honestly, I've done research and I still can't find exact ingredients. It's like, we don't know. It could be.
They probably didn't even know.
But I did find that it's probably got nickel in it, and nickel is even more toxic than mercury. We don't talk about it much, but mercury just kind of kills the cells off and they kind of slough off. So once you get mercury out of your system, I mean, it's still not good for you to have it in there, but it will kind of slough off. But nickel actually mutates the cells and can kind of create genetic problems and stuff. So
that's crazy. Well, but so the mercury, because like they usually recommend people who are pregnant or women who are pregnant not to eat fish, right? Because it may contain mercury.
Yeah, because there's some mercury in there. But it's also the old fillings, the silver colored fillings had mercury in them. Yeah. But if you want to have them removed, you should go to a holistic dentist, because if you have it done wrong, you can actually release more toxicity into your body just by getting them out too. So if you do have any of this stuff, there is a International Academy of, I can give you a link, but it's basically
we'll
a
write
place
that.
where you can look up a holistic dentist.
That's awesome, because I think I need one.
Yeah.
I was just telling Roxanne before this that I have some
Oh.
fillings I think I need to get redone.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can give you a link too.
Yeah,
So you can
thank you.
get help by it. But
Definitely.
it's so I went to the one biologic dentist. He recommended I do the root canal, but he did take out these metal bridges that I still had. So that at least, it was like helped one part, the other part made worse. But and then it was about a year later or so that I went to a coach, basically, who was more of a maybe spiritual coach, I think he called himself. And he did this kind of, it's kind of like hypnotherapy kind of thing, but it's just sort of tuning into your body and listening and talking to my body. What does it need?
Yeah.
And he asked me, like, to ask my uterus, do you want a pregnancy? And I just automatically was like, no. And then I started crying because I'm like, what do you mean no?
Your uterus didn't want it. Yeah.
But he rephrased the question later. It's so funny. And later when I told him this story, he said, oh, I'm so sorry. I shouldn't ask the question like that. I'm like, it's okay. We got where we needed to go. But he later asked me, if you were healthy, would you want a pregnancy? And then it was yes.
Yes.
So then the question's like, what's not healthy? What's going on?
Yeah.
So I about a week later, I woke up from a dream, just get them out. What are you talking about? And I also had teeth implants done. So when 2 of my bridges had problems, they said, oh, teeth implants are the latest, greatest thing. You got to put them in instead. And my problems got worse because it turned out I had these competing metals. So I had the metal mixture with silver and nickel and whatever. And then I had titanium. And the metals apparently can cross react, and your saliva is like a conductor between them. So you literally have this weird
science experiment going on in your mouth.
And then I had 2 root canal teeth as well. And those are supposed to be, they clean out the root and put some stuff in to fill it. But the reality is actually you can't clean the whole thing because there's the main root of the tooth, and then there's all these little tiny pores, and those little tiny pores remain with infection, and so it never gets fully cleaned. But it's much more profitable for dentists to do a root canal than to pull the tooth. And so it still bothers me. I've tried to talk a couple of my friends out of it, and they're like, no, the dentist said it's fine. I'm like, But if you are perfectly healthy and you just have one root canal, your body will actually kind of surround it and be okay, because it'll kind of essentially separate it off and isolate it. But what I've heard is if you have anything else, so any other challenge to your immune system, it can suddenly get set off where it starts bugging you. And so in my case, I had all these other things, and I'm sure it just kind of added to the problems, but it was leaching out an infection. So once I figured out that I had all this dental stuff and I found the holistic dentist, they said, oh yeah, this can totally be causing your fertility challenges. Like, it was just like, they're like,
that's
yeah,
nuts.
Clearly.
And what relief to finally have somebody to validate what
Yes.
you intuitively already knew. That's so important, to find practitioners who are actually collaborative and trust that you know your body. So that's great.
And then the naturopath who they worked with, she was looking at my dental x-rays and said, oh yeah, you've got infections under your teeth implants. It's right here. I don't know why the regular dentist didn't see it.
Lazy dental work, apparently.
Yeah, I just looked up somebody in Sweden, actually. I now live in Stockholm, and I found a doctoral dissertation on what can happen with infections and teeth implants, because I think they've been doing teeth implants since maybe the 1980s, but just more recently that people have really, like, it's begun to really, really take off as a kind of a standard procedure.
Yeah.
And a lot of people told me, oh, it's just you who reacted. But this guy actually studied the fact that apparently little shards of titanium get released when they drill in the tooth. So you're ending up with inflammation in the surrounding bone.
Eesh.
And any metal, the other thing is any metal sticking up, in order to do that, the gums are here, and the tooth, like the actual, like, what do you call it, the cap of the tooth is up above the gum line, so the metal is sticking up from your gum. So again, it's a conductor of electricity.
Yeah, that's true. Oh my Lord.
Better to be metal free. It's kind of where I've gotten to.
Yes, please.
Yeah. Jesus Christ.
So yeah, but people don't talk about it, and they don't
we don't relate that to anything, like, we don't think about it at all. And again, we put our complete trust into dentists and practitioners who work in that field, because we have no idea we can't do that for ourselves. We also, like, they've studied, and so that, like, just like with doctors, we put our trust in them. Like, they know what they're talking about, they have our best interests, but what do they know? Like,
not
who
always
knows? Yeah, that's what I'm saying. It's not always. And how do we even know that they've had the best, like, education or training?
Well, and like the root canal one, there's just an extreme on both sides where, in fact, when I posted on social media, I was just writing a guest blog post about all the dentist stuff. And I posted a little short version of it on social media. And sure enough, I got a dentist who was following me who wrote, this isn't true. You don't know what you're talking about. And I'm like, it's a lived experience. I know what's true, and I feel it in my body, and I felt the difference when it came out. So you can say all you want that it doesn't cause infection, that it's not leaching into your body, and that the research isn't true, but I could feel it, like literally the most dramatic thing when I had it taken out was the root canal.
Yeah.
I had this experience where I just started crying. And I'd never seen it happen before for myself. Usually, you have this feeling of an emotion, and it comes, and then you're crying. This was literally like involuntary. My body was weeping, not like I didn't, it was just, as soon as it came out, I had tears just streaming down my face. And the dentist was like, are you okay? And I was like, you got everything in your mouth, so you can't talk. So you're like, oh yeah. So these are happy tears.
Yeah. Oh my God.
But each tooth has a relation to a system in your body.
Yeah.
So every part, and so actually one of the front teeth that I had the bridge on is related to fertility.
Interesting.
And online, I found somebody in an online forum who had a bridge in the exact same place, same thing as me, and she was also having fertility problems as well. She'd had late miscarriages, like 2 second trimester losses.
Wow.
And but it was one of those things where you're like, what are the chances that you come across someone who has the exact same, not just the same bridge, but in the same place and the same problem?
Yeah. I've seen a diagram actually, and I have it saved on my phone, of like all of the teeth and like it's stating like which tooth relates to other areas, of your body.
It's pretty powerful.
Yeah. What were you going to say, Roxanne?
Yeah. Sorry.
Oh, I was just going to ask if after that root canal, was that the piece that kind of allowed your body to get pregnant with your son? Was it right before that?
So I basically had with the second dentist, after I had the dream, I then went to this dentist. I had 4 surgeries with him. So I'd already had another dentist take out the one bridge and replace it with cubic zirconia, which is like what do you call it? It's the non-metal that they use for fake diamonds or whatever. And then this other dentist did two root canal removals and 2 teeth implant removals. So that took a while, because also at the same time I went through a divorce. I woke up. This was like my woke woman moment. I was just so alive, because I was feeling, where you're feeling like my intuition was telling me one thing and the doctors were telling me something else, and it was this conflict.
Yeah.
And I was just really sick, and to have people just keep telling you you're fine when you're not was really hard.
Yeah.
And so to finally have it like, oh no, in fact, the naturopath, when I finally got to her that works with the dentist, she said, I can't believe you're as healthy as you are. With all the stuff you have going on in your mouth and all the things, she said, you must be taking amazing care of yourself. And I was like, oh, yeah, because here you're thinking like I'm taking supplements. I was doing acupuncture.
Some validation.
Yeah, it was like, oh, okay, I actually am on the right track. I was just, you're like running uphill the wrong direction or something.
Right. So sometimes we need those reflections back to us to like remind ourselves, like recognize all the work you're doing and look how great you're doing.
Yeah. So while I was going through all that, my husband at the time was going the opposite direction. He kept canceling appointments to the counselor, and he had really bad anxiety. And the thought of having a child set off the anxiety. It made it worse.
Oh yeah.
And when he finally went, like 6 months, you know, I'd been going to all these doctors and doing all this stuff, and you know, like, oh, I'm so excited about life. And he's like, more and more.
You guys were literally like,
yeah. And he finally admitted to me that he realized that if he was by himself, he wouldn't want to have a child. And I just said, that's what I've been feeling. Like I could feel it, but I couldn't articulate.
Yeah.
And maybe I knew subconsciously, but I couldn't.
Your body was trying to tell you, but you didn't know how to fully know what it was or where it was coming from. Yeah.
But it was like every time I talk about that longing, like I come home and say, oh, I saw this baby and I'm so sad. And he'd be like, what was the right thing to say? Or I'd be mad at some insensitive comment and he'd be like, what was the right thing to say? I don't get you. You know, he just like, he never had this longing. He'd never see a dad and a child and be like, oh, I wish, you know, it just never happened. So you could think about it. There was some subconscious level where I knew that, but when he finally said it, I said, oh, okay, that's what I've been feeling. Yeah. And the anxiety got worse every time I thought I might be pregnant. He would get more freaked out. And then when my period came or I got, you know, like a miscarriage, he was relieved. We were on like a totally different path.
Yeah, but you can see how your partner's energy also does affect you, right? Also, it's your body's way of maybe protecting you. Like this person may not be the best person to have a child with, you know? Yeah. Because
and I think it's in multiple layers. I do think that too. The souls that were around me then were definitely more his energy, but he was also rejecting them. So I feel like there's also this conflict, but
totally.
But so I finally said, I'm out of here, I'm done. And then of course he told everybody, oh, I don't know why she left, I have no idea, she's just mean.
Okay.
He didn't want to claim his part in it.
Yes, it's okay. And even when I started my fertility coaching, I started to tell my story, and I didn't put his name in or anything. I just said he decided he didn't want to have kids. I was very like positively.
Well, it's just a matter of fact. It's just fact, you know.
But he wrote to me and said, you need to take that story off social media, and that's not true. And I did want to have kids. And I was like, well, how many do you have now? 0.
Exactly.
So, I don't think you did. But anyway, so it's like clearing. But it took me a while then to get all my surgeries done. So it was probably like another year before I got everything cleared out. But I could feel, even now I wasn't trying to conceive, but I could feel the difference in my body. I could it was like, I have energy. I can remember things. My brain was affected. I had like this brain fog where I couldn't remember things. I couldn't remember details. I was sleeping maybe 10 hours a day and 14 hours on the weekends. And I still felt exhausted. And you know, I would take naps every time I could, and I would think like, what's wrong with me? Why can't I get through? And you know, like the previous naturopath, well, we just work on your adrenals, we'll boost. It's like, so you take these little things, but they're just a band-aid. They're not really. But when I got all that out, it was, you know, my thyroid was normal, my adrenals were normal, I could function, I was feeling good, I was so yeah, I just felt okay. My periods got better. So all the signs were, okay, this is good.
Right.
And then I'm single and I'm like, okay, now
what?
Okay.
Yeah.
So that was a couple years, and my best friend kept saying, you just want a baby, just like go be a single mom, and I just kept resisting. But eventually after, at a certain point I said, I got to change my life. I was in Kitsap County, and it's a ferry ride away from Seattle. And it was just a smaller town, a military town. I was just feeling like I'm not going to find the right person here. And I'm not feeling the single mom thing yet. And I don't know, I need to change something. And so I had some friends who were international school teachers. And suddenly I realized I don't have a house or a mortgage. I have month to month renting with a friend, so I could, leave at any time. I don't even have a lease, and I have no tie. I don't have a child yet. I don't have a spouse. I could just go anywhere. And so I just opened the computer and I'm like, where should I go? And I found this job in India, and in southern India, and literally first job I applied for on that round of thinking, and I got the job, and 2 months later I was in India.
Wow, that's awesome. You.
So talk about a life change. I just kind of
taking a risk, though. That's awesome.
Yeah. So I was there for a year, and it was beautiful. I talk to my husband now about wanting to go back, just because I love the culture and stuff. It was a small town and not the typical middle of the city, huge India. So it was a neat community.
Yeah.
But anyway, again, I was in a place where it's a pretty small town, maybe 10,000 or something. Plus you're on a hilltop. So it's very hard to get anywhere else. And unless I was going to meet some other Western teacher at this school, the chances were slim that I was going to find a partner. And when I decided I wanted to be a single mom by choice, I said, this is not the right culture.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I decided to go back home, and I thought, well, if I'm going to be a single mom, let's just go live with my parents, and I can get some support, and they'll help me out. And then I was kind of shocked because I got home and I tell my parents, I guess I hadn't really outlined my plan before I came home, maybe because I was nervous about it. But I finally sit my parents down. I'm like, okay, this is my plan. I'm going to be a single mom by choice, and will you support me just by, I have the rent paid by living here and stuff.
Yeah.
But I said, I'll take care of all the care. I'll find a babysitter. I'll do whatever, but can I stay here at least? And my mom freaked out of just more of the, what will the neighbors think kind of
thing.
Yeah. But I know, I just knew in my head, as soon as the baby's here, they'll be happy. They'll be excited for me, and they'll be helping. But it was a little stressful, and it was San Francisco area, and I was from Seattle, and I'd never lived down there. And it just turned out it was one of those where it was just a disconnect and didn't fit. And so I had one attempt with a sperm donor and didn't get pregnant. And then I found out the month later that my niece was pregnant and not a planned pregnancy. And she was 19 or 20. And I love her dearly, and they have a beautiful child. And now it's funny because we kind of get to raise our kids together, but because my son's only a year and a half younger, so they're not that far apart in age. But when I found out she was pregnant, it was like this, oh my gosh, my brother is a grandparent before I became a mom.
Oh my gosh.
This is crazy. So that was pretty hard. But I was starting to think, okay, well, I'll just get it together and think about what to do next. And then I ended up moving back to Seattle because my grandpa died. And so I decided to help out with my grandma. And anyway, in the middle there, I started chatting with Matthias, who's now my husband. And he's from Stockholm, and we met swing dancing actually on travels. And
cool.
Actually, we met 2 months after my divorce was finalized. I think that year I just had good energy. I was just like, yeah.
Yeah.
But he's an introvert. We were in Sweden and Seattle, and I think both of us kind of, a little question a long distance relationship. And there was interest on both of our parts when we first met. But we didn't really, either one of us, pursue anything. It was just writing on Facebook a little bit. So anyway, 4 years go by. I'd been to India. I came back. I'd written to him and said, well, I might come through Europe. Can I go visit? And then I ended up canceling. But then I said, oh, well, when I get home, we'll Skype or something. And that started us kind of the dating kind of thing. Because I told him, oh, I'm planning to be a single mom by choice. And then suddenly he's like, so how old are you again? And what else do you do for, he started asking all these questions that were more like dating questions instead of just, before it was just like, oh, where are you going dancing? And, oh,
right.
Yeah, I went to this thing and this teacher and whatever. And suddenly it was like, what are your other dreams? What are your other goals?
Yeah.
So we started kind of talking more. And then he asked me, well, would you put your plans on hold and, wait till you come to Sweden and, I could be the father of the child. And we actually agreed to be parents before we agreed to be like married. Like,
interesting.
And I think it was part of what drew me to him was just this idea that he also just had this really longing, like it was very strong, and he'd never been married before, but he didn't care that because I had dated a few people where they hadn't been married before and they didn't understand divorce.
Yeah.
So they tend to think that you're the problem or whatever.
Right. Yeah.
He just wasn't, that didn't scare him off or anything. It was just like, okay. And, oh, you're being liberal and, trying to have it's a baby on your own. And
you're being liberal. That's funny.
Well, and, the Swedish culture, I think, is a little more accepting of a woman being in charge of her own body and her own future.
Yes.
So,
Yeah. Like abortion is not even an issue here of whether or not you have a right to it. It's like they would, everyone, conservative, liberal, would protest here if you tried to ban abortion. It's just not, It's like, no.
Yeah, right. Our bodies, our decisions.
But I'm pretty sure there's a lower rate because there's more support. Like there's friends and more just other support here. So
yeah, the more you try to restrict something, the more people are going to rebel against it.
Yeah. So I ended up moving to Sweden, and I felt like I was in pretty good health. By that point, it had been like 4+ years since I had all the surgeries and all that stuff. So my body had time to detox a bit. And we got pregnant at 5 months after I moved here.
Nice.
I was 33 and he was 37. So,
awesome.
And I think actually we would have gotten pregnant sooner, but the mind body thing came into play when I came to Sweden because I had extreme stress from moving countries.
Yeah. culture shock. Yeah.
Huge. And I moved in with a guy who'd never even dated anyone and had never even had like a platonic roommate or anything.
Wow.
So lived in the same apartment for like 10, 15 years and never got rid of anything. So
it's like opposites.
Yeah. I'd pared my life down to, I think I moved here with like 8 boxes of stuff, and so it was quite funny actually. He messaged me, took this picture of his closet where he'd whittled it down to where there was a space like this big, and he's like, I made room for you, look.
I love it.
I showed it to one of my friends, and this guy goes, does he know that women have more clothes than men?
Not in my house.
Yeah. Really? Yeah.
Yeah.
I've experienced the same, so I understand.
So you got pregnant 5 months after moving there.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so I just want to try and highlight your mind body work, because there's something that you did with that. So tell a little bit more about that.
Yeah. There was multiple things actually when I look back, when I started working as a fertility coach. I looked at music and its relationship to fertility and just in general stress release and things. And because my background was a music teacher, and I realized oh, I wrote a song for my son. I just didn't set out saying I was going to do that. But at a time when I was very I was single, but I was thinking a lot about the creative energy and wanting a child someday. And I drew this painting. I'm not a big artist, but I was just kind of like, okay, this is a boat and it's in this water and it's very choppy. And it was like the boat that brings your dreams into reality. And then I preached a sermon. I've been a lay minister for our church. And so I used to preach maybe 3 times a year or something. And the text was about Peter. It's like you get out of your boat and you walk on water toward Jesus. And the traditional Christian perspective on that story is that Peter was a doubter and he fell in the water because he didn't believe. But I heard someone else talk about it as, but Peter got out of the boat. The rest of the disciples stayed there. And he actually had the courage to like take a step, try something new, do something. And he had trouble, but at least he tried. Like, so the concept that, we do all have our little boats of comfort, and sometimes we just have to get out and try. Yeah. And so I kind of preached about that theme. And then I heard a contest it was like Christian radio station had a contest for songs. So I created a song out of this theme. And when I was pregnant with my son, I was creating a playlist, and I said suddenly, oh my gosh, my husband picked out the middle name of Peter, and the song was about Peter walking on water, and water is the metaphor for birth, and multiple ways, getting out of your comfort zone, all that. And so it only kind of dawned on me when I was putting the playlist together right before I gave birth. And then during the birth, it was 4-hour playlist or something, and probably repeated. Right after he was born, that song was playing. And I kind of believe the song is like a mantra. So that positive affirmation, repeated thing, that you can create this thing in your mind with a song that's even more powerful. It's like vibrating in your body. Yes. And you are like bringing this thing to fruition. And then when I look back on it, actually the scripture passage is from Matthew. And in Swedish, my husband's name is Matthias, which is the Swedish Matthew of the Bible.
Oh, wow. That's so cool.
And, like he's not religious himself, but just when I kind of put all these things together, what's the chances that I drew, I feel like I had this energy and I drew things into me.
Yes.
And
you manifested it.
Yeah. And I used to kind of, I believe in kind of the spirit baby concepts. Like there's the soul of the baby that can be kind of hanging around you before you conceive.
Yeah.
And I felt my son since maybe after my divorce. And I used to have these kind of conversations in my head with him that was like, okay, you pick out the person who's supposed to be the father. You can choose him, And so I think it's kind of funny. I agreed to marry Matthias after I was pregnant. I think there was a little bit of me that was like, okay, I need the confirmation that this is the right path.
Yes. Yeah.
And, but yeah, it's, so other things I did, generally journaling, just, writing down your thoughts, what are you feeling, get your feelings out, and, obviously the music and general meditation. But I think it's funny because Roxanne and I have been working on this program together, and I realized that I've always struggled with traditional meditation, the idea that you just sit, quiet your mind, and you're gonna suddenly achieve this peace and whatever, and I just has never worked for me. But I realized that I've been doing all these other forms of meditation. I just didn't ever call it that. So like I'd walk in nature and reflect on the trees and go touch the trees and like feel, listen to the birds and kind of get your feet in the dirt and that sort of thing. And singing is a beautiful way of meditating, but we don't talk about it or think about it as that. But singing songs can, humming in the way that, you hum when you're happy. You can also, when you're depressed or something, if you purposely hum a song, you can change your mood or help improve your mood.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of like things like that where I had a workbook that I'd planned to do the fertility coaching. After I got the teeth stuff taken care of, before I met Matthias, and somewhere in the middle there, I had actually put together a workshop series with multiple practitioners, like partnering, but I never got anyone to sign up because I didn't know the marketing part. But so it's cool to come back to it now. But anyway, I had this workbook for that I, put together a whole bunch of things. And so when I was struggling, and it had been, I don't know, 4 months I've been here, and I was like, what's wrong? I think I'm healthy. Why am I not pregnant?
Right.
And I sort of started looking all this, oh yeah, the mind-body connection.
Yeah.
And so I started going through a lot of the exercises, and that December, so I moved in end of July, and in December, December is a dark time anyway. It's like just literal darkness here in Sweden. We're like way north, and then also just, I don't know, it's just a rough time of year. If you're trying to get pregnant, you're wanting a baby, Christmas is kind of this reminder, like everyone else has the family that you want, and it's a struggle. And so that December was really hard, and my birthday came, and I was like, I'm 43, and I just found out that you can't adopt a newborn in Sweden if you're over 43.
Oh, wow.
So I was trying to look up other options and just, be ready, because I was determined, like, somewhere or another, we're going to
be a mom. Yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, I got really depressed, and then I looked up all this stuff, and I had this kind of sense of like, it's going to be okay, like it's all going to work out. And
Nice.
We had made a fertility clinic appointment just to get everything checked out. And at the first appointment, I was pregnant.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So it was good though that we did check in with him, because I did have fibroids, and they were a problem during the pregnancy. And that's one of the things. Now Roxanne and I have created this program for pregnancy, Courageous Pregnancy.
Yeah.
And the idea behind it is for someone who has gone through a loss or infertility. And I've just been noticing through people's comments and things on social media how stressful and how much the previous losses, especially like the week they lost a child and they go to an appointment that week, there's all this anxiety about, is this going to happen again? Am I going to repeat this? And,
yeah.
And, I don't know what it's like to have like a stillbirth or a second trimester loss myself, but in my family, I found that I was really identifying with these people who've had like I shouldn't say mine was a real loss, but having farther along when you're so, you're so visibly pregnant, and it's a lot more physically traumatic too.
Yes. Yeah.
And I was trying to figure out, why do I so strongly identify? And then I was remembering my mom lost her younger sister at less than a year old. So she was 9 months old. And so I feel like there's a little bit of a family story, that
trauma line. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
So when I started reading about the effects of sound healing, humming, yoga practice, and all these things, and how it could improve pregnancy outcomes, I said, okay, this is what we've got to be.
Yeah. Well, so can you guys both tell us about what you guys have created, like in a few short minutes, like the program you created, both of your roles in it, and all of that? Because I want to hear more about it.
Sure.
Okay.
Well, it's a 7-week. I'll give this a shot. Leah really has been the spearheader for this, but it's a 7-week program. We really tap into chakra work, understanding energy lines, which is an Eastern philosophy, but it's also neurologically in the Western medicine is starting to acknowledge that there are certain nerve pathways in our bodies that, anyway, blah, blah, blah. And I bring my embodiment coaching practice and my experience as a professional musician, and I had a music minor in college, and Leah and I grew up together making music. We used to sing and plays and church, and we do duets in church and all this. So
That's awesome.
It just came naturally to us to create this program together. So there's seven weeks, seven modules, would you say? Yeah. And so I pass it to you.
Yeah. And we have, like guided visualization where Roxanne did this beautiful, the words of it. And then I put music, kind of inspired. I just sat on the piano and I took her words and I just started playing. And then I put, in some viola and stuff. And just the first time I listened back to it, I fell asleep. And I don't normally fall asleep with music.
Yeah.
But I said, oh, okay, I guess that was calming.
Yeah.
So, yeah. And then I have a couple things just on songs where taking songs that are kind of a known simple tune and turning it into something for your child, or make it into a mantra. And then one of the things I do is create songs too. So someone could go through our program and then also I could write a song for them for their future child. So
that's so beautiful.
Their mantra. But what are some other pieces of the program? It's kind of sound healing practices, working in with the chakras, and then kind of yoga, more stretching, and then more strength building, and a combination, plus just our wisdom and chats like you guys have for your podcast, where I feel kind of inspired when we were putting that together. So
That's
and then
beautiful.
accompanying PDFs and journal ideas and that sort of thing. So
that's awesome.
Yeah. And from the research, I found that these practices could help reduce lower blood pressure, reduce miscarriage rate, and have a better oxygen saturation rate for the baby. So when in a control group study, for the people who practice this one breathing humming practice for 5 minutes a day throughout the pregnancy, they had 0 with high blood pressure and 0 with the newborns needing oxygen after birth. And that really struck me in particular because my son actually was in the NICU, or the intensive care, for 5 days after, because he had breathing problems. He was born 4 weeks early. So and I just thought, wow, if I could have had even more of this knowledge. Some of it I was doing, some things you do intuitively, and then you read this research and you go, oh, okay.
Yeah.
I was doing all that music and things. And
you love that. You get that confirmation.
Yeah.
Totally.
So anyway, I really, it's really evolved working with Roxanne, and I really appreciate that, because I kind of had, a start of an idea, and then we kind of wove things together. And I was originally thinking it would be for someone trying to get pregnant. And then I had a pregnancy and an early miscarriage while we were putting things together. And I said, wait, this is for pregnancy. It was kind of,
especially those early weeks when, you're not supposed to talk about being pregnant, because there is a lot of loss. And so you are silent through all of this anxiety and stress, and replaying your old stories.
Yes.
So it's a way to support women and men in those early weeks. And then also, as a launch pad, Leah does fertility coaching. So offering people support through that. I do embodiment coaching. So as they're pregnant, if they want some sort of embodiment practice to keep them strong and connected, they can, transition into that. And then also Leah does the writing songs for families to welcome their babies. So
and so you also are a doula.
Yes.
So
right.
Yes. If you're in Bellingham, I am a doula, and I'm there to support women through that transition process. And also, I will fly if you're my friend and get pregnant in California.
Yee. You're already hired. Yeah, so I had a question, I don't know if this is a dumb question, but I was just thinking about, like, I know this is designed for maybe women who have had fertility issues, but so like for me personally, I struggle with anxiety and mental health, like a lot of stories play in my head that keep me from doing the things that I want to do, or so like say I wanted to get pregnant, yet I had these, I haven't had a history of infertility or fertility struggles. However, what if I wanted to take this course because I wanted to make sure that I'm setting myself up, and my baby up for an appropriate, I mean, not appropriate, but like a supportive environment, would you recommend it for women like me as well?
Yes, which is why I know another fertility coach who's created a program, and she calls it, for pregnancy after loss. And I decided I didn't want to put that title on it because I want other people who just simply struggle with anxiety or depression, or maybe they didn't have any infertility, but now they're diagnosed with high-risk pregnancy for whatever reason, preeclampsia, or maybe you have diabetes or high blood pressure.
I had gestational diabetes when I was pregnant, and that was brand new to me too. And sometimes I, just the way that my son was born also, I feel like he received some kind of traumatic, like imprint because I wasn't as informed or didn't have the most supportive environment for me to birth him into the world, in a way that wouldn't cause that for him.
Yeah, no, that's why I felt like this was more important. It was important to get it out to the general, because and I have a business, what do we call it, mastermind group I'm part of, and neither one of them had trouble with infertility, but both of them said, I would identify, or I would like this program because I struggled. One of them actually said she struggled in her second pregnancy because of fears from the first pregnancy.
Yes.
Things that's
what I feel like I would go through. Things I don't want to repeat.
Yeah.
And
I think also that for me, the music piece is really beautiful if you're learning some songs and stuff to set you up for that fourth trimester. So when your baby's here and they're not sleeping and you're struggling. And that whole postpartum depression prevention. I feel like this can be prevention, but when you're in the middle of it, it would be really hard to take the program. So I feel like
you have to set yourself up for it to get, it's got to be like a progressive thing.
But then you could come back to it and you could look up, like I've recorded a bunch of the short little songs separately. So we have a thing where you learn it or you learn about it. And then I have them on little separate audio files. So you could come back to the program and just go, okay, I want that song. I need to put my child to sleep and I can't remember how it goes.
Yeah, totally. I love that. Awesome. So, well, so we do have to wrap up, but is there anything else you guys want to say before we get going? Anything? I mean, we'll put the information for where to get the course in our show notes for sure. But yeah, anything else you guys would like to say?
I don't I just that, I would love to work with you if you're watching and you have an interest. And one-on-one, I do have a program for trying to get pregnant as well. So I do like a 9-session, but it can be adapted. I've found that different people need different things, and that's why the individual sessions are good. But also our courageous pregnancy could be for someone trying to get pregnant as well. I feel like it would also be great to already have those practices before you were pregnant, so you can come back to them. So I just wanted to say you're welcome working with us. Also, I do really feel the songwriting is good for a loss as well. So if someone has gone through a loss and they really want to commemorate that child or have this, something to remember them by, that I feel like the songwriting could also be really special for that occasion as well.
Nice.
Yeah, music is so it's so evocative for us, and we do talk a lot about music and the power of music, and that's, I think, our special niche, if you will, is that we do use music as a conduit for processing a lot of this anxious energy and also creating intention. yeah, shifting your perspective to be more calm and courageous and grounded through whatever your life and pregnancy and child may throw at you.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I forgot to mention, but we do have a module that's partner related. So most of it is for the person who's pregnant, but we do have one where you're actually doing a practice with your partner with mantras and kind of really, I think it's really powerful to also draw them in, because I think sometimes the men or the partners can get left out of the process of the emotional processing. And they might also not understand what you're going through if you're longing for a child or you're now pregnant and you're having anxiety. Well, why are you having anxiety? Just calm down,
Right, exactly. Yeah.
So having a point of connection, I think, is a beautiful piece of the program too.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Great.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Leah, for sharing your story with us and for partnering with me. And we will have all the resources that you mentioned in the show notes, including the Courageous Pregnancy Program, your website, the holistic dental information, and anything else that we think of or come across when we go and review and do the show notes. So thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Bethany. Thank you, Roxanne.
All right. We'll see you guys later.
Okay.
All right. Stay wild.
Stay wild.